anyone ever ends up watching any of these videos, you're going to need to know how much I love Harry Potter. And I mean how much I love Harry Potter. This one in particular is my favorite book of my favorite book series of any book I've ever read. And I've read a decent amount of books. I was an English major in college. So I feel like I somewhat know what I'm talking about. Major question mark with that. But anywho, one thing that increasingly irks me is how they did this movie. And I don't mean the splitting it in two parts. I get why they did that, and I think it was a strategic move on their part. Not only to tell the storyline the best they could, because there's a lot, like, this is a thick boy here. There's a lot going on. So not only just story-wise, but also from like a business perspective. Yeah, they got more money out of it. So what? We all went to go see the movie anyway, so joke's on us, really. We're still giving them our money. So not that part. That's not where I get frustrated. I get frustrated with that last bit of the movie. The last final fight. It frustrates me because that is my favorite part of my favorite book ever. There were a few nights I was reading in our living room downstairs, and I just sat in that chair reading all day, and I didn't realize it was dark out until my mom came and flipped the light on. I realized I was just sitting there in the dark reading. It'd been like noon when I started, and I was just still sitting there reading because I needed to know what happened. But those last couple of chapters, I was shaking so much. Like, my hands were literally shaking. I physically couldn't read the letters because my hands were moving too much. So my mom and my sister read the last couple of chapters out loud to me because I physically couldn't hold the book. Well, mostly my mom read it. My sister just wanted to read that one line that's like, "Not my daughter, you bitch!" She was really excited to read that. That's how I read those last couple of chapters. And I remember immediately after finishing it, for about a week, I just kept reading those last couple of chapters over and over again because I was just so captivated by them. I've yet to this day not experienced reading like that. Even when I read it now from start to finish, I still shake a little bit. It's one of the most vivid reading experiences of my life. Okay, so that's my love for this book, and that section in particular. Like when they go back to the forest again from King's Cross and everything up to that final battle and the epilogue, those moments are my favorite. In the movie just went to it, not necessarily in a good way. So I want to rant and ramble about why that irritates me, okay? I feel like I need to preface this rant by saying I get why they made some of the changes they did. A lot of what they did was to make this moment more cinematic. When you're reading, you get different feelings and get different pieces of the story than when you do when you're watching and listening to it happen. So I get certain things, and I know they worked really hard to put this movie together, and I get it, and I love every single one of them for it. However, it does not take away how irked I am. Like, this really grinds my gears. This whole storyline of 7 books has been building towards this moment, this climactic fight. All the morals, the stories, the good parts, the bad parts, everything has been building towards this. And especially the themes, the themes and the lessons that were being built up, poof, poof, gone. Okay, earlier in the book, in the chapter of the ghoul in the pajamas, when they're at the Weasley's house and they finally get this moment away from Mrs. Weasley, Hermione is explaining how she borrowed the books from Dumbledore's office in Half-Blood Prince right after the funeral. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, it didn't happen in the movie. So she's talking about what she learned about the Horcruxes. They're talking about how to destroy them, and they're talking about souls. And this is really important because this is kind of what the story's been leading up to. The idea of your soul and breaking it up. And Hermione is explaining how she really can't believe Voldemort made so many because the process is so horrendous. It's dreadful and it's quite terrifying. Obviously, we never get the full details of how it's made, but there's lots of implication of the dark magic and the murder that's required for it. So Ron asks, isn't there any way of putting yourself back together? Yes, said Hermione with a hollow smile, but it would be excruciatingly painful. Why? How do you do it? Asked Harry. Remorse, said Hermione. You've got to really feel what you've done. There's a footnote. Apparently the pain of it can destroy you. I can't see Voldemort attempting it somehow, can you? So that's the only way to undo the Horcrux, to truly and deeply regret the horrors and atrocities that you've committed to make it. That's the only way to undo it. And it's so painful a process just to regret and feel remorse and to forgive yourself for it, to feel bad for it and forgive yourself for it, that a lot of people die from it. That's a huge, heavy statement. So this is something that's said very early on in the book. And so later down the line, after Harry comes back from the dead, after King's Cross, after they trudge through with Hagrid, I'm going to try not to go in too much the rest of these scenes. He's there, and this whole interaction, very different, and I think the movie kind of made it very awkward, especially with the whole Draco thing. I disagree with that. I don't think it's fair that they got to walk away. The whole purpose of Narcissus Malfoy saying that Harry was alive was so that she and her husband could go back into the castle to look for their son, because they did not care anymore. They didn't care what side had won. They didn't care what happened. They just wanted their family back together. So for them, for Voldemort to say, oh, come join me, let's have an awkward hug, that just, it made me angry. And Draco to come back and them to walk away from that. They don't get to walk away from that. After Voldemort dies, they're in the Great Hall like everybody else. They are there with the dead and the wounded and the grieving and those that are relieved that it's over and saddened by the grief of everyone they've lost and everything they've lost to get to this point. They are there in their midst because each side was affected. They don't get away scot-clean just because they were on the other side. They are there in the Great Hall and they are mourning just like everybody else, and they were relieved just like everybody else. They don't get to walk away. Neither side gets to walk away unscathed. I need more hot chocolate. Frustrated now. And then the rest of the fight. Not even before the fight. Okay, the whole thing with Neville. I love that they gave Neville his moment, because I love seeing Neville appreciated, but I think they also took away his moment and how freaking badass it is. Voldemort keeps trying to put these spells on them to stop them, to silence them, and none of them are holding, and you can see he's confused and slightly frightened by it. And then Neville charges through the mist and tries to attack, and then obviously he doesn't get very far, and Voldemort puts a full body bind curse on him. And then he talks about the Sorting Hat and how the houses will be no more, it will just be Slytherin, everyone will be in Slytherin. So Neville's just right there, just like sticking it to him the whole way. It's like, oh, come join me. And Neville's like, when hell freezes over, and like, yeah, Neville, because you are brave and you are a Gryffindor. Yeah. But Voldemort summons the hat from Dumbledore's office where it laid and puts it on Neville's head and sets the whole thing on fire. And this is a moment where everything just kind of happens at once. And it's so beautifully, brilliantly written. In this moment, it literally, the sun starts to rise. So dawn hits, this hat's on fire, Neville's on fire. In Harry's moment, I can't let this happen, I have to move. But so many things happen in that one moment that chaos just ensues. First of all, the first thing they mention is Grump, Hagrid's half-giant brother. Yeah, did you forget about him? He was there in the fight. He comes back looking for Hagrid, so that starts to wreak havoc. Everyone else also kind of charges back into the fight. Neville, hat fully on fire still, pulls the sword of Godric Gryffindor from the hat and slices the head of Nagini right in front of Voldemort's face, and Voldemort can do nothing about it. Anyway, moving on. And then in that moment, while all ensues, Harry falls out of Hagrid's arms and throws the invisibility cloak over him. So nobody knows that he is still alive, The only person that notices he's missing is Hagrid, because Hagrid was holding his body. So the whole fight gets pushed back into the school, and everyone's fighting with more relish. They didn't lose hope at seeing Harry dead. He became a symbol of their hope and their strength renewed again, and they are still fighting, still pushing, because they still have hope. So they go and they're fighting, and the way the battle is happening is so intense. Things are flying back and forth, and Harry is not in the center of it. He's under his invisibility coat. He's under his invisibility coat. He is under his invisibility cloak. Everyone gets pushed into the Great Hall, and there are two main duels happening. There are three professors. I believe it's McGonagall, Slughorn, and Flitwick. They are dueling against Voldemort 3-on-1. And nearby, Hermione, Ginny, and Luna are also fighting Bellatrix. And Bellatrix and Voldemort are so powerful, it takes the three of them just to fight them one-on-one. Then a spell comes this close to Ginny. Harry is like, hell to the freaking no, and starts to charge forward to go to Bellatrix. However, somebody pushes him out of the way and screams, "Not my daughter, you bitch." And Molly duels Bellatrix, which we see a little bit in that movie, but it's so much more intense. Bellatrix is taunting her the whole time. She's like, "Oh, will mommy go just like Freddy? What will happen to the family once mommy is gone?" And Molly is fuming. She's like, "You will never touch my family again." And she falls. Voldemort, so enraged that his most loyal follower is fallen, goes to shoot a curse at Molly, which Harry puts a shield up between. He goes, "Potato!" Everyone's kind of like, where'd that come from? And Voldemort's looking around to see who dares step in between him and his prey. And that's when Harry finally reveals himself. And everyone's like, "Oh my God, Harry, you're alive! Oh wow, Harry, Harry!" But Harry doesn't see that. Voldemort doesn't see that. They just kind of lock eyes and instantly start circling each other around the Great Hall. And they talk, and everybody is pressed up against the walls. Everybody is watching this moment, and the discussion is so freaking important. So they didn't go trampesing throughout the castle, back and forward. No, Harry did not run away from him. He confronted him head on, wand out. He didn't run away. I don't know why the movie made him run away. That didn't make sense to me. I get it, it's a more cinematic fighting and with spells and that, but it doesn't make sense to his character. So anyway, they're circling, and Voldemort's kind of teasing him. He's like, "Oh, who are you gonna use for a shield, Potter? Who's gonna sacrifice themselves next?" And Harry's like, nobody step forward. This is how it has to be. It has to be this. It has to be me. It has to be us. And he's like, "Oh, you don't mean that, Potter." I don't know why I'm doing Voldemort like this. "You don't mean that, Potter." And he's like, "Oh, you don't mean that. Come on, you always use someone as a shield." So what happens next is Harry quotes a prophecy at them, like, "There are no more Horcruxes. It's just the two of us. Neither can live while the other survive. It's going to be one of us." And it's like, "Oh, that's an accident. You'll die again like you died in the forest, and you'll stay dead this time." And Harry starts explaining, like, it's not an accident. Like, it wasn't an accident that my mother chose to die. His act of dying without his wand in hand, choosing to stand while somebody murdered him, mimicked the act of what his mother did. And the same magical love protection that was on Harry then transformed to everybody in the castle, everybody he loved, everybody that was there fighting. And that's why his spells weren't holding. That's why they couldn't seem to land hits, because Harry's magic was protecting them from him. And he starts to explain that. And he's just like, "You're not killing anybody." He's trying to explain to him, to get him to understand what's happening and why he can't win. And Voldemort is just refusing to listen. And it's this really interesting dynamic that of Harry being very calm and Voldemort just kind of yelling, like, "La la la la, I'm not listening," but not quite that, but that's essentially the same vibe. Voldemort's like, "You dare," and Harry's like, "Yes, I dare." I love sassy Harry. Voldemort's like, "What, do you know some magical secret that I don't know? Do you have some powerful weapon that I don't have?" And Harry's like, "I got both." Voldemort's like, "What? Is it love?" And of course, it is in part love. It is love and will always be love. and something Voldemort can't understand. He's incapable of understanding love. And Voldemort's kind of shaken, but he's not trying to show it. So he starts taunting about Dumbledore. He's like, oh, Dumbledore gave you this? Dumbledore, who I had kill? And Harry's like, ah, but you didn't kill him, and that's where you effed up. And he gets into explaining what happened when Dumbledore chose to die, when Dumbledore had a discussion with Snape and he accepted death, something Voldemort's too afraid to do, because ultimately Voldemort fears death. He is a fearful mortal man with fear just like everybody else. I'm getting to that point in a bit. And he explains that Snape wasn't on Voldemort's side, and Snape loved Lily so much that he was a spy from the start. He was a double agent. Is it a double agent? He's really on Harry's side, but pretending to be on Voldemort's side. By pretending to be on Harry's side, by pretending to be on Voldemort's side? Yes? Wait. Started as Death Eater. Then Dumbledore. Then Dumbledore told him to go spy. That makes him a triple agent. Yeah? Anyway, Snape was really on their side. Despite anything he might have done to prove otherwise, he was really on their side because of how deeply he loved Harry's mother, and he brings up the dope Patronus, and he's like, it doesn't matter, Snape killed him in the end, Dumbledore's dead, doesn't matter. And Harry's like, ah, but it does. Anywho, so he's going through, and he's like, Snape killed Dumbledore. And Harry's like, yes, but Snape did not defeat Dumbledore. And Voldemort's like, that doesn't compute. Harry's like, Draco disarmed Dumbledore, he therefore defeated him. If Snape had just killed Dumbledore without Draco disarming him, the Elder Wand would have died because their death was in agreement. But it wasn't, because Draco disarmed him without Dumbledore's consent, because wand magic is weird like that. Or, I'll find Draco and kill him and I'll have the wand and you'll be dead too, so it doesn't matter, so bye-bye. And he's like, ah, but it does, because I already beat you there. I already got Draco. And he's like, what? Oh, and he keeps calling him Riddle. He's denying him that title that he gave himself. He's taking that power away. And I love that dynamic as well. Hey, I skipped the part. Oh, I went out of order. So before he does the Draco reveal, this is where Harry says the most important line. Something that I think is such an essence of him and his character in this series. And why we love and cherish it so much. And the movies didn't include it, and that's really what the heart of this rant started at, because I was thinking about this and it was making me mad. So during this discussion, Voldemort said, Dumbledore was trying to keep the Elder Wand from me. He intended that Snape should be the true master of the wand, but I got ahead of you, little boy. I reached the wand before you can get your hands on it. I understood the truth before you caught up. I killed Severus Snape 3 hours ago, and the Elder Wand, the Death Sticks, the Wand of Destiny, is truly mine. Dumbledore's last plan went wrong, Harry Potter. Yeah, it did, said Harry. You're right. But before you try to kill me, I'd advise you to think about what you've done. Think and try for some remorse, Riddle. What is this? Of all the things Harry had said to him, beyond any revelation or taunt, nothing had shocked Voldemort like this. Harry saw his pupils contract into thin slits and saw that the skin around his eyes had whitened. It's your one last chance, said Harry. It's all you've got left. I've seen what you'll be otherwise. Be a man. Try. Try for some remorse. And if you remember correctly too, earlier in this video, remorse is what we've already established will allow somebody to undo a Horcrux. It is the key to saving their soul. By having this discussion, by saying that line, by offering him that chance at redemption, that chance to be good and to do something good, Harry is offering Voldemort a choice. Similar to the choice that Voldemort offered Lily, similar to the choice that Voldemort unknowingly offered Harry. Giving them a chance to change their fate at the very last second, to change the fate of their soul. Voldemort has done so many horrible and atrocious things in his life, and Harry, without a doubt, has every right to want to hate him and kill him and see him destroyed. And so does most of the wizarding world, if we're being honest. They all have justified reasons to not want Voldemort around. But the fact that Harry is able to look his greatest enemy in the eye and offer him that chance to save himself, that to me speaks to the heart of this story and the heart of the themes of it. It is so much like how Harry would always choose to disarm. He would always do the Expelliarmus, and he got chastised for it. Somebody told him, don't make that your signature move. Don't do it. This is a war. They will kill you. You can't be wasting time disarming people when they're out to kill you. Yet, Harry's first instinct is always to disarm, not kill, to always stop the fight, not escalate it. Yeah, he's human. He's had some angry moments. For the most part, he's a very compassionate and empathetic person. He goes back to save Draco in the Room of Requirements, even though it's Draco's fault that they're in there and the whole place is on fire. He's always offering people that chance and that hope. He uses Expelliarmus. He offers Voldemort a chance at redemption. And that moment, not a big fight where they're struggling back and forth, but that one little phrase, that to me is the climactic moment of this story. To be able to look at somebody so horrible in the eye and give them a chance for forgiveness, that to me is more powerful than the duel the movies did. Obviously, Voldemort doesn't accept this choice, doesn't even understand it. It's not something he can understand. This war was started out of fear and death and hatred and destruction. A fight like they show in the movie where they're both kind of fearing each other, they're hating each other, they're out to destroy one another, that only escalates the fight. It doesn't end it. It perpetuates the cycle. It takes a moment of empathy and compassion to end the fight. It takes love. And I hate to be cliche and Harry Potter about love, but it really is. That's what it comes back down to. So that kind of, that essence brings it in. And up until the last moment, Harry is giving him that chance. And it is Voldemort's fault that he does not take that chance. Harry did everything in his power. And Voldemort's the one that chose to act. Harry says it comes down to this. Does the wand in your hand know that its master has been defeated? Because if so, then I am the rightful master of the Oldron. So what will happen if we were to fight? What would happen if you cast a spell and I cast a spell? Who would the wand listen to? And then the sun, that rising sun, peeks into the Great Hall, and the light flashes, and they both flash their wand, and Voldemort goes Avada Kedavra, and Harry goes Expelliarmus, and it hits. It wasn't about that back and forth. It hits clear on for once, and true and rightfully, compassion, empathy, and love won out against hate. Being compassionate to a fallen foe. Harry disarming Draco, taking the wand out of his hand and not hurting him further. Harry offering Voldemort that chance. Harry saying Expelliarmus when somebody was trying to kill him. That's what ended it all. And then Voldemort goes flying, and this is where I think is truly brilliant that the movie's so messed up on. And again, I understand why it's more cinematic. When the spell hits, Voldemort doesn't vanish into pieces and blackness and go, yeah, I'm melting. No, he doesn't. He falls back and he hits the ground. His body is solid because at the end of the day, he's a mortal man. No matter how much he feared death and tried to stop death and overcome death, he could not because he was mortal in the end of it. For every evil and atrocious thing he did, at the end of the day, he was still a mortal man. And his body hitting the ground kind of solidified that. He was not something to be feared. He was not a name to be whispered in dark corridors and fear to be said aloud. He was not a myth. He was just a man. He was just a man who was afraid to die. A very lonely, sad man at that. Harry unafraid to die, unafraid to do something right, even if it was hard. He is the one that triumphs, and it's not easy to offer kindness to somebody who's shown you so much hatred. In the movie, taking that away and changing it and having him flutter into dust, it makes him that scary myth and legend that they talked about. So that he in that moment is Lord Voldemort, this person too scary to talk about. He is human, that's the name, because we can't say his name because we're too afraid of him. Him fluttering off like that re-emphasizes that rather than destroys it. In the books, they literally are so like, let's get him out of here. They take his dead body, and I'm pretty sure they just like throw it in the closet or they throw it in the Chamber of Secrets. They get it out of the way because there's nobody there to care for him, because he cared for nobody else. Those feelings and those moments, yes, that back and forth fight in the movie looks very visually cool and has a lot of moments, but that circling duel, the conversation is held and how it falls afterwards, that to me is a much more satisfying final duel. That's my little rant for today. Basically, it comes down to this. If you want to see a good, true visual representation of what I'm talking about, because reading, who does that? I don't know, that's crazy. If you want to watch it rather than read it, A Very Part of Musical does this very well. It is very funny and well done and well put together, and they keep the themes true. They keep that feeling very true to the book. And overall, it's really great. So if you don't know, if you don't know them and you're on the internet, what are you doing? Go fix that. Go figure out who Team Stark it is, and you'll thank me for it later. But other than that, that's my rant for today. So, thoughts, arguments, disagreements, I hate you. Why the hell do you look like that? I don't know. I thought it'd be cool to dress up like Harry Potter and like a Hogwarts student. Yeah. Thoughts, comments, agree, disagree? Is this something you thought about? Does this bother anybody else? Because this bothers me to no end, and I've spent a solid like hour just ranting to my phone about it. So I really hope somebody else agrees with this, so I didn't waste that much time just ranting to my phone and getting no feedback. Yeah. So if you like me talking about this stuff, I guess you're weird like I am too, but let me know and I'll keep doing it.